Alright, what is going on, UTM26s? How y'all doing today? And welcome back to another post-com video. As you can obviously tell from the fact that the gameplay you're seeing on your screen is Splatoon 2, and the title that probably says Splatoon 2 somewhere, we're going to be talking about the Splatoon 2 test fire. So I really like the game. I think it does a nice job of blending sort of a more complicated and, I don't want to say tactical, but skill-based version of Splatoon with all the same aspects that we liked about Splatoon 1. I believe that what they've done here, and I'll get into some of the reasons why, they've made it harder to be good. Yeah, I guess that's probably the best way to put that. And so I guess we'll start with that. Some of the examples of that are especially with the specials, right? For example, with the Stingray, which is obviously sort of replacing the whale, because so, for example, with the whale in Splatoon 1, you could basically be like, all right, I'm going to cut off, we'll say port map, I'm going to cut off the right lane, I'm just going to put my whale here, then I'm going to go join the attack. Whereas if you do that with the Stingray, you're sort of committing yourself to standing in this one spot, so you want to make sure that no one's going to be behind you. And so what it'll do for the competitive scene is it'll force teams to, communicate more, like, hey, I'm going to use my Stingray, make sure no one's behind me. Or your teammates will call it, hey, good time to use your Stingray. No, we've got them trapped in their base, or something like that. Another example of this is with Tenta missiles, where it sort of put a higher priority on player IQ, because when you use your Tenta missiles, you want to make sure that you're not just locking onto one player, you're locking onto multiple, because obviously you're going to get your most bang for your buck with that. And one of my favorite programming things that they did is that if you lock onto the more players you lock onto, the longer time it takes for your Tenta missiles to fire off. I just thought it was really genius. And obviously, the new weapon, the dualies, I like them. I think it'll take a little while. I don't think we can judge now whether it'll be part of the meta. Obviously, we've only seen 4 weapons. We've only ever played with 4 weapons, so it'll be tough to tell, how rolling actually affects everything. But what I can say is I do think the rolling will be more helpful for moving around the map and dodging, instead of the way they sort of show it off in the trailers and everything, where you're sort of rolling and then killing people. Simply because when you roll, you get locked into a position and you don't have this whole your full range of motion to actually aim at people, so it'd be very easy for someone to sort of just jump behind you and kill you. But what I do like, I think the rolling is really good for, is what I call it. I call it drop rolling. I know other people have other names for it, but basically when you jump off a ledge and then you roll and you ground pound almost. Those are the type of things that I really wanted. I wanted these little tactics that the players who really invest themselves in the game can figure out, sort of wave dashing in Smash or something like that. And so now that we sort of talked about, I guess, sort of the more positive things, I'm going to talk about some of the things I think they should tweak a little bit, because I don't think anything in it is inherently bad. I don't think there's any huge glaring issues. I know people have had issues with the motion controls being a little delayed. I wasn't really looking. I wasn't paying too much attention, because obviously I was streaming. I was sort of just talking with friends, hanging out. I wasn't really looking at that too much. So if that is an issue, that is something they definitely need to fix. But I didn't personally notice it, so I can't really speak on that. But some things that I do think they need to fix, and you're going to see a lot of it actually in this gameplay you're watching right now. This Muscle Forge Fitness, and we'll talk about the maps a little bit more in a second. But when you touch enemy ink, you basically become one shot, whereas in Splatoon 1, you were maybe 2 or 3 shots away from dying. And what this does, which is both a good thing and a bad thing, it makes you, more of the time, you're going to be really weak. So when you're traveling around the map, you're not going to just always be full health, which I think a lot of the time, because usually if I got hit a few times in Splatoon, I'd sit back in my ink, heal, and then move, because it was such a quick time. I wasn't really taking myself out of the action. Whereas Splatoon 2, or at least what I found myself doing more in Splatoon 2, was sort of waiting, was challenging gunfights where maybe I wasn't full health, or maybe I didn't have the best advantage. And something and sort of one thing that is causing a lot of this is burst bombs. Burst bombs have, like, literally, I found myself, I probably threw more burst bombs in the test fire than I've thrown in Splatoon 1. Let's put it that way. Like, that stat's probably not accurate, but basically, like, anytime I saw someone, you know, moving around the map, I'd throw a burst bomb and then attack. Because basically what burst bombs do is, one, they're going to make them very weak because they're going to be in your ink. And also what happens now when you're in enemy ink is you basically can't move. Like, you're basically, like, if you can't shoot at your feet to ink, you're not moving. You're just frozen. And now this is obviously, it's not the, I think it is a little too much. Like, I think you take a little too much damage. I think they need to up how much you can move. But what is good about this is that it'll now put a higher, I don't want to say like price, but it'll make ink resistance much more appealing for a player, because obviously, like, you'll take less damage in ink and you'll be able to move a little bit faster. So if, like, I think this is another, I didn't bring this up when I made my video about quick respawn, but I'd like to see them do more things like this to sort of put a higher priority on other main abilities, so that people, if quick respawn is, so, you know, still is as dominant, there's more of a reason to run something else, if that makes sense. And then there's obviously just the small things they need to clean up. I think the post-match map, when they do the overhead and then Judd and whatever mini Judd is called come up, that the ink on that looks absolutely awful. But that's something I totally expect them to fix. I'm not worried about that at all, because it's simply just a graphical update and they have months to fix that. So I'm not worried about that at all. And now I guess we'll finally start to talk about the maps. Muscle Forge Fitness, I think, has a ton of potential. Obviously, we don't totally know how it's going to play until we sort of see how they set up Splat Zones, how they set up Rainmaker, how they set up Tower Control, and, you know, any other modes. Because at this point we're sort of just assuming they're all coming back. But so we won't fully know how the maps are going to play until we get them. But the thing I really like about Muscle Forge Fitness is the fact that it's got a really nice 3-lane feel, so gameplay is going to be spread out like all around the map. Also, you are able to push the opponent's base without it being too easy, right? Like, you have one access point to the opponent's base, and that's obviously, you know, over the grate that you just actually saw me by. And so what that does is it sort of, you know, makes a good balance between having the base accessible but not making it super easy to get to, which I feel like they did a pretty good job with. Nintendo did a pretty good job with in Splatoon 1. Of most of the maps were like that. I also think it's big. It's big enough to the point where Rainmaker, Tower Control, and Splat Zones will all play pretty well. I think I talked about this on stream a little bit, but I think obviously the most obvious place to put the Splat Zone right in the middle of the map. They do have like a chalked out outline, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's where it is. In terms of Rainmaker, Tower Control, I'm not going to make any guesses on the path for that, or like where they're going to put the goals or anything, because I'm not an expert on that. But so I guess now to move on to Reef, this map, I think this map is an absolute mess. Like, it's almost comical how sort of bad it is. Just to start off, the map is tiny. Like, I checked it from the farthest point where they could put the Rainmaker goal, which is on like the little platform that you drop onto that then has the ramp down to the mid, or that then has the ramp down to mid. So from there to top of the box on bridge, which is, you know, is the most logical place for them to put the Rainmaker unless they put it under. It is less than 5 seconds, and that's no swim speed too. So it's a little ridiculous. Just like, basically, if you got a wipe right off, you could win. You could basically pop the Rainmaker, get it, and win the game before the team respawns. That's ridiculous. Like, that should not be happening. And so this obviously all stems from the fact that you can't access the other team's base. Like, the only places you could really trap them would be from the plat that I talked about earlier and watching the left and right side. So it's just like, you can't, like, I don't know, there's just not enough space to maneuver, but there's also too much space. Like, on the sides, there's so much just open space for you to just like, you have to randomly fire in and hope that you hit them, because basically they could just camp in there and wait for you to, you know, make a mistake and not like you basically get unlucky 9 times out of 10 was trying to find someone in that ink, which, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it doesn't also work that well either, because it's sort of, you know, the whole point is to actually like, get into engagements and fight people, not just camp around the base and, you know, hope that like they end up finding you basically. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think Rainmaker is going to work very well. I think it might probably be a map that they end up removing from the solo queue rotation, which is just like, I just don't understand why they designed a map like that, you know. But you know, it's whatever. It's obviously they can't all be great maps, and I'm gonna make a video later about sort of like the competitive, what I want or what I hope the Splatoon 2 community will do in Splatoon 2 in terms of maps and stuff like that. But that's obviously for a later video. In terms of like tower control, I think tower control will work. I think it sort of falls in the same category as Black Belly. Rainmaker is going to be awful. Splat zones I think will work. I'd almost kind of like to see him put it on top of the bridge, because it would give I feel like a pretty nice feel, where it would just be like everyone's just going to flood bridge. Specials are going to be huge in terms of zoning out. And so I think I actually kind of want to see that happen, but it would be a total mess. Like, I feel like strategy would just go out the window and you'd just be flooding hill the entire game. And then obviously tower control, like Black Belly tower control works pretty well. It's actually not bad. So I think that they can make a nice path for it. But the problem I see there being is that unless they sort of do a Piranha Pit and totally redesign the map, Rainmaker's just not going to work, which is a shame. Although, again, as I said, I'm going to make a video talking about that. And I guess sort of the final thing that I can touch on pretty quickly here is how quickly you get your specials. Obviously, it felt really quick, to me at least. It may have just been because, one, I was playing against lower quality players who hadn't played the game as much, so, you know, I was getting more kills, which obviously helps you get special. But I think what they also may have done is lower the amount you actually need to get them. So for players who, you know, aren't as good at the game, they can still actually, you know, get their specials pretty consistently. But yeah, it's not a big deal. I expect them to find a pretty good balance with it. They did fine in Splatoon 1, so I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Obviously, if you enjoyed, please remember to click that like button, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Splatoon.